Women's sports receive less than 10% of total sports coverage on TV. And poor coverage equals low fan base, which equals bad time slots, which equals poor ratings, which equals cheap media deals, which equals lack of revenue for the leagues, which equals minuscule pay for the players. It's a vicious cycle that needed to be broken. As a bank founded on being a financial ally, we understood that while media investment isn't sexy, it's the single most effective way to achieve financial equity and eliminate the massive pay gap. While other brands were just putting their logos everywhere, Ally took action and chose to invest in the advertising media that would actually break the cycle. Overnight, we reinvented the approach to sports media by becoming the first brand ever, not just the first, with an initiative called the 50-50 Pledge.
For every dollar that we spend in media, in men's sports, we're going to match that 1-for-1 in women's sports.
We founded Team Ally, a Disney, expanding coverage for female athletes across ESPN and SportsCenter. But our proudest achievement,
Women's sports.
Welcome, everybody, to this Alpha Live with Ally Who Does It Right. Today, we have the privilege of and are thrilled to welcome Andrea Brimmer, Chief Marketing and Public Relations Officer for Ally. Thank you so much, Andrea, for being here. Ally is a longtime Alpha supporter and will be the front and center at convention in August. For those who aren't familiar, Ally is the biggest online bank in the country and offers a full suite of financial services, including a leading auto lending business. I've had the privilege and opportunity to meet with Andrea and also got a chance to speak at our team meeting last year. She is a giant in the marketing world, winning award after award personally and leading the effort that got Ally recognized as the Sports Business Journal's top sports sponsor of the year just a few weeks ago, beating out other well-known marketers with significantly bigger budgets. I cannot wait to learn more about her, the marketing that they do, the insights that she has, and how Ally blew up its presence in sports and has been a trailblazer for women's sports. Welcome, Andrea, to our conversation.
Thank you, Damien. You're always so enthusiastic. Let's go. I love the energy, buddy.
Absolutely, absolutely. I tell you, that video got me pumped up when I saw it. I am excited to be here. I have a few questions for you, but before I go into that, I just want to, you were yourself a D1 soccer player as well, correct?
I was. I joke around with my kids. I played soccer back when we used to like carve a ball out of a stone, but it was a long time ago. But I played D1 at Michigan State for 4 years on the first ever varsity women's soccer team at Michigan State. So it's pretty cool.
Nice. That is awesome. That is awesome. So I've had the pleasure to get to know the Ally team over the past few years. I've met several of your leaders, even spoken at your marketing event last year, which was a thrill for me. For those Alpha members that may not know about Ally, can you tell them a little bit about, what do you do, where are you based, and what makes you unique?
Absolutely. So Ally is the only full-scale digital financial services company, actually, that I think I know of in terms of full scale. So all online, no brick and mortar. We have banking products inclusive of savings, checking, invest accounts, mortgage accounts, a credit card. We also happen to be the largest non-captive auto lender in the country as well. Our headquarters are Detroit, Michigan, and Charlotte, North Carolina. Got a little over 11,000 customers, or a little over 11,000 employees at Ally. And just an incredible, took this incredible bet the same year that Apple launched the iPhone that everybody would start banking on this, and it was a good bet. So it's worked out pretty well so far.
Absolutely, absolutely has. Now, you've become a huge Alpha sponsor over the past few years, and we are thrilled for that. I will even say at a time where you all had your internships continuing during COVID, you still supported us to provide other students who had lost internships support during that time. You've been an amazing partner with us. Can you tell us a little bit about what's driven the engagement with Alpha over the past few years?
Yeah, I mean, look, we've always felt like Alpha is an incredible organization. We love, and that was one of the reasons I was so excited to have you at my marketing all hands as well. I think the way that you think about the importance of education, the opportunity that you give Alpha members, the intrinsic cues that you think about that are so important in preparing people for the business landscape and for furthering their career and their economic mobility. Those are things that align with what Ally is about. And we are blessed to have this really incredible Aliados ERG, which is our employee resource group at Ally, led by Dan Soto, who I know you know well and has been super involved in Alpha as well. And this has been, a relationship has been a labor of love for them. And so we really try and listen to our ERGs and who know the culture and know the things that we should be a part of. And so for us, it's been a great pleasure to be involved for as long as we have.
And we thank you for that. Now, multicultural audiences are growing faster than any other group, especially within the Latino population, which is near surpassing 20% of the US. How important is it for Ally to represent the diversity of our country in its marketing?
Yeah, I mean, look, the way that we always think about it, Damien, is we kind of characterize America as a diverse mass. And everybody talks about the fact that the minority of the diverse mass will become the majority here very quickly. And it is critically important that our brand looks like what the country really reflects and what the country and who the country is really made up of. And so from our marketing standpoint, we've never tried to bifurcate, oh, we're going to go over here and we're going to have this communications for everybody, and then we're going to have these communications just for these subgroups. It's always been, how do we represent the diverse mass in everything that we do? And then how do we show up in the right ways authentically against specific cultural audiences, such as the Hispanic audience?
Awesome. Fantastic. No, I appreciate that. Now, for those that may not know, you are, and I know you're humble, but you're one of the leading marketers globally, like in the world. You're one of the top people in the world, period. Right. And so it is a privilege to be able to talk to you and hear your perspectives about that. Now, you've been leading marketing at Ally for a while now. What do you see when you, as the chief marketing officer, what do you see as your goal at Ally? And excuse me, the chief marketing and public relations officer, because there's a slight component there. But what do you see as your goal for Ally?
Yeah, I mean, when I took this role 9 years ago, which is kind of crazy to me that I've been sitting in this chair for 9 years, and thank you for those kind words. I had a really simple vision, and the vision was be a brand that matters. And the idea was deeds, not words. How do we show up in the world in the right way? And how do we show up authentically in the world? And how do we do things that align with our enterprise mission, which is to change the economic trajectory of people's lives? And that might sound like it's a really broad vision, be a brand that matters, but it's really hard to do. And being a brand that matters means showing up in all the moments that matter consistently and persistently. I've seen a lot of brands that, particularly post George Floyd murder, have come off of a lot of their DE&I promises and objectives We've never done that. We've never wavered with regard to how we want to show up in the world. That's the definition of being a brand that matters. And so to me, I think when you are a brand that matters, then you are inextricably linked in the fabric of somebody's life. And that creates favorability and makes your brand grow. And that's what we've tried to do. And I think we're doing a pretty good job of doing it, especially in a category that people don't love. People don't love their banks, and people love us as a bank.
I will tell you, I also have my Ally water bottle over here. I also have an Ally shirt, and I wear it often, especially when I work out. What I love, I will tell you, about the logo is not just the Ally, but the do it right piece of it.
Yeah.
Right. Can you tell us a little bit about the do it right? What does that mean to you and to the organization as a whole? Because I truly love that.
Do it right's been, so I had the great honor. My first assignment when I came to Ally was create the brand. We didn't exist. We created this from the ground up. So my first assignment was go create the brand, come up with the name, come up with the brand strategy, come up with how we're gonna show up in this world. Do it right was one of the very first phrases that became part of our lexicon. And it was the golden rule: do unto others as you would want done to yourself. And we thought, particularly in this category of financial services, that was so critical, because if you think about it, people were overly apathetic about their money. You had just gotten so used to so many bad experiences in banking, but you felt like, well, what am I supposed to do about it? I'm stuck. It doesn't matter. And we didn't want people to feel that way about the most important asset in their life. We wanted people to feel emotional. And do it right was an internal rallying cry to make sure that people were customer obsessed at Ally and put the customer at the center of everything that we did. But then externally, it was a promise that we were making that hopefully, we're not going to get it right all the time, but hopefully every interaction that you have with us is about deeds, not words. And to us, it's just been a powerful statement that has become a part of our ethos.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that with us today. So now let's get into why are we really here today? So yes, to learn about Ally, our partnership, it's fantastic. But let's talk about sports. Everybody loves sports, and especially women's sports. We'll be getting into that quite a bit. Ally has sponsored sports for years, starting with golf and the Ally Challenge and NASCAR. In fact, last year when I spoke at your event, I got a chance to meet Jeff Gordon, which was oh my gosh, moment for me. So thank you very much for that. Now you also sponsor football for those. It is soccer for a lot of folks out here, but football. You're leaning into women's soccer and the National Women's Soccer League, basketball, the NBA, WNBA, the U.S. Golf Association. How does sports help a bank, and what does it mean for your brand?
Look, the media environment from a consumer perspective is exceptionally complex. People don't do anything on one screen anymore. They do things on multiple screens. I'm sure if you've got little ones in the house, and anybody that is on this, that you watch your kids, they're on their phone, the TV might be on, they might be watching something on the gaming system, right? So sports is the last bastion of live entertainment and engagement. So from a brand standpoint, it's a great place to stand out. Secondly, it's a passion point for so many people. We're passionate about our sports. We're passionate about the teams that we care about. And we're passionate about the brands that people are smart enough to know that the sports ecosystem needs brands in order to survive. And so we're passionate about being loyal to those brands that support what we love. And so for us as a bank, when we're trying to differentiate ourselves, when we're trying to stand out, when we're trying to punch above our weight and get consumers' attention and create this favorability, sports is just a great platform from all of those dimensions for us. And it's really been an integral part of our strategy as we've grown this brand in this company.
Awesome. Now, one of the things that I found phenomenal, and I think a lot of people probably are learning it for the first time when they saw the video today, your commitment around women's sports specifically. So your commitment to women's sports began before it was popular. It seems like right now it seems to be the fashionable, cool thing to do, but you did it before because it was the right thing to do. In 2022, you announced a 50-50 media pledge, committing to spend the same amount on men's and women's sports advertising within 5 years. Why was that so important to you, and why is it so significant to do that?
Yeah, Damien, you mentioned the fact that I played soccer at Michigan State. So I myself am a product of Title IX. Title IX exists to protect female athletes' right to play sports at the collegiate level, and to ensure that there was balance and equity at the college level of kind of one for one in terms of the availability of sport. When we announced our 50-50 media pledge, it was the 50-year anniversary of Title IX. And we wanted to do, and Title IX is under siege in this country. There are a lot of forces against Title IX. And so we wanted to do something that would be meaningful. And we saw a couple of really interesting statistics. Statistic one, less than 10% of the media coverage is going to women's sports. That stat still exists today. Which means over 90% of media coverage is going to men's sports. Women's sports are not in prime time slots. They're not in good places where people can consume the media. The second stat we saw that we loved was that 94% of C-suite women in the Fortune 500 played sports, 54% at the collegiate level. So I talked about that economic mobility earlier, building that pipeline. And that's what a bank is supposed to do. And this is how the 50-50 pledge was born, that we would commit that for every dollar we spent in men's sports media, we would match dollar for dollar in women's sports media, build this ecosystem, and as a result, build this pipeline of talent in this country that would ultimately go into business.
I love that. And the whole topic of economic mobility, I will tell you from an alpha perspective, it's one of the big areas. One of our pillars is wealth creation. We consciously don't call it financial literacy, although technically financial literacy is that. One of the things that we want people thinking about is what actions will you take as you are thinking about building wealth for your family, community. I will tell you, I grew up in Harlem. We didn't necessarily talk about these things at the dinner table, almost to the point of you don't talk about them versus leaning into them. So I love that this is being leveraged as a way to be able to bring those topics of conversation to the forefront, making it easier to be able to learn about the type of financial literacy you need to start bridging those wage gaps, understanding all the things that you need to be able to progress in your career and build that wealth. So I love that about what you are doing there. Now, jumping back into the sports theme, I just had to say that piece there. Jumping back a bit into the sports theme. So the popularity of women's sports has skyrocketed over the last year. We've seen it significantly. Now, what do you think is driving it?
Look, I think what's driving it, honestly, is that you're finally having brands commit to getting women's sports moved into prime time slots. And once they're in time slots that people can actually consume them, fans can actually consume them, they realize women's sports are great. It's fun to watch women's sports. Look, Caitlin Clark had a great quote. She said, women's sports didn't just get good, they've always been good. And that's the reality. But if they're on at 2:00 in the morning where nobody can watch them, then you don't have access to that. It's like anything else in life. Access is power. And so one of the things that we did is we partnered with the NWSL and CBS, and we moved the National Women's Soccer League championship game into prime time. That was 2 years ago. Damien, it was the first time that a women's championship game had ever been played in network prime. That's insane.
Yeah.
We're not in the 1980s, we're in the 2020s. And women are just getting primetime slots. And when you see whether it was March Madness, championship games, WNBA now, NWSL going into these primetime slots, viewership's up 500, 600, 700%. And it's not just women watching it, it's men and women.
Yeah, I will tell you, Father's Day this past Sunday, my dad and I normally we'll be hanging out with the whole family there, watching TV and stuff, and we were watching the WNBA game in the middle of the day, and we were like into it, and then we were like researching like who's that player, and we knew about, so we knew Caitlin Clark obviously, so but like it was something that as I thought about this call, this session that was coming up later in the week, I was like, this is just because the proximity to us, right? If it wasn't on in the middle of the day on a Sunday where we would normally be watching sports anyway, we wouldn't even have considered it. But
Right.
now it's like, yes, it's right there, and now we're talking to each other about the WNBA players, and so it's, to your point, it makes a huge difference, that access to the games that were being played there. It was fun. It was a good time.
No, absolutely. It's funny on same kind of deal. I took my dad out to breakfast, and we live in a smaller town, and we went out the day after the championship game for March Madness, women's March Madness, and I looked around the tables purposely. We went to this little diner. Every single family was talking about the game. And I was thinking to myself, gosh, 2 years ago, this never would have happened. This never would have happened. And this is incredible, because when you give access to the sport, people consume it. So it's been amazing to be part of the architecture of this movement.
Yeah, I love that. And so I want to turn back to you a little bit more, right? So we talked a bit about you playing for Michigan State. Can you share with everybody, like, what was that experience like? How has that fueled your support for women's sports, specifically with the National Women's Soccer League? You talked about it a little bit, but I'd like to talk about it a bit more. Not everybody gets that opportunity to play at that level. I will share a quick story with you. I played football and baseball in high school. I was co-captain of the football team in high school. I tried out for Rutgers, and I realized real quick I was not meant to play D1 football in college when a lineman beat me in a 40-yard dash. So tell us a little bit about your experience and how it's continued to fuel you.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was an incredible experience, especially being part of the first ever varsity team at Michigan State. There were only 2 teams in the Big Ten that were varsity. And that's when the Big Ten actually used to be 10 teams. It wasn't, when the Big Ten was like, what is it now, 30 teams? It was 10 teams. And so the honor, I'll never forget it as long as I live, the honor of the going away to the first game, and that big bus pit pulling up with Michigan State University down the side, and getting on and being handed our stipend for food, and putting that kit on and representing my school. Even as a kid, I recognized the gravitas of it, but I think almost more importantly, I recognized the gravitas of the platform that I had as a woman, trying to help other female sports teams, other female women's soccer teams get their varsity status. And that was one of the things that we really did, and that we really focused on, is how can we help other Big Ten teams get their varsity status? And to see today, the ubiquity of women's soccer across the college landscape is incredible. And so for me, I've carried that forward into my career, which is this idea that if you have a platform, and you have to use it. And if you don't use it and you waste it, that's on you. And so that has always been the biggest lesson that I learned at Michigan State and carried forward.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that with us. So a couple of questions. First, I'll say, for everyone that's watching, if you have a question, you could go ahead and submit the questions. We will be taking some questions at the end. Now, what do you believe is the role that social media plays in Ally sports and marketing strategies? Like, how do you think about social media as part of it, in addition to the media, the formal media, as we might think of?
Yeah, we use social media a lot to engage and ignite. And so it's been a great platform for us. We have something called Team Ally, which is a collective of ally athletes, primarily female athletes. We use social media to live stream content so people can hear from Team Ally. We use it to show how they're supporting each other. It's been a way to grow the footprint of our brand and bring the casual fan in, right? So there might be people that are part of this session today that aren't WNBA fans, but they heard us talking about it a lot today. And now they're going to go to social media. They're going to check it out. They're going to be like, who are these players that they're talking about? or don't know anything about the National Women's Soccer League. And, social's become the new proxy for search. It's the first place people go to see legitimacy, to see authenticity, to see unfettered truth. And so we've really tried to lean into it in that way and really ignite fandom.
Awesome. Love that, Andrea. And there's some questions already coming through. So somebody must be a sports marketing fan out there, because they're asking, what emerging trends in sports marketing are you most excited about?
Well, I would say the first one is the growth of these really significant broadcast contracts for the women's leagues. So let's look at NWSL as an example. Their previous broadcast contract was $1.5 million a year. $1.5 million. Can you imagine? Their most recent contract that they just did, they renegotiated a 5-year deal, $240 million. Now, while $240 million isn't a lot of money when you hear about the NBA potentially getting, hundreds of billions of dollars, it's significant in women's sports, and the W is up for a renegotiation right now as well. So I think the emergence of legacy media platforms is one. The second one to me that I'm excited about is these emerging media platforms. So there are a lot of female-led, athlete-owned media platforms that are really cool. The Gist, Just Women's Sports, Remedia, that exist to shine a light on telling a different story from a different perspective, particularly around women's sports. And I love that. It's content, it's storytelling, it's shoulder programming, it's things that we don't have today that we are rabid to consume as fans. So those are two of the things that I think right now are emerging that are really exciting, and present a lot of opportunity to anybody on this call that's a sports marketing professional.
So I want to add another question there for somebody that may be a marketing professional that is really loving what they're hearing and wants to learn more about how do they pivot into understanding sports marketing a little bit better. What recommendations would you have for, let's say, a student or even a professional to start understanding this market better so that they may be able to one day be someone like yourself in that position?
Yeah, look, it's a really popular space, and it's a lot of fun, right? It's a great place to be there. One, there's a lot of colleges that have sports marketing curriculums. There's a lot of colleges that have classes that you can take. I would say there are a lot of places to study and get smart. Just watch. People always ask me, what can I do to get involved in women's sports? Go to a game. Watch a game. Start following athletes and players in social media. Really understand the ecosystem. There's amazing resources. I just talked about some of them. Just Women's Sports is a platform in social media. Follow them. The Gist is a newsletter. Subscribe to it. Remedia is Tobin Heath and Kristen Press, who are two former U.S. women's national team players, and they have players on from all over the world and all over the country. It's broadcast live once a week, the recap show on YouTube. Watch it, become a student of it, understand the fandom, and really start to immerse yourself in understanding the ecosystem so that you can, speak in a way that is intelligent, think about the strategies, and really start to be part of helping grow this ecosystem.
Awesome. Love that. Thank you. Now, how do you stay ahead of changes in consumer behavior related to sports and entertainment? How do you deal with those trends?
It's, staying ahead, period, regardless of those two categories is the hardest thing, right? I'm talking about things now as a CMO that I never even thought about 5 years ago. Let's talk about AI, right? That's a learning journey every single solitary day. And so for me, what I've always done, Damien, is commit myself to an active learning agenda. And so I try and allocate my time, 2/3 of my time, like doing my day job, as I call it, and 1/3 of my time really trying to learn, being in a constant state of evolution. And that learning can be anything from being a ravenous reader, getting up in the morning, reading the trades, understanding what's happening within different sectors, to reaching out to other brands and people that I admire and learning from them. I love doing that, whether it's a CMO at another company or before we jumped on the call, I was on a call with a woman named Rachel Rapino, who owns a research company in the women's sports ecosystem, And all they focus on is understanding audiences and audience behavior and just picking her brain and kind of understanding from her. So it's like reach out and learn, be a constant student. Those are the things that I really do. And then third, I'd say it's hands-on experience. You got to go, you got to be part of it. Whether you spend a whole day just playing around with Chat GPT or write a paper with AI or go to a college class and watch how kids are using it, or, if it's in the women's sports ecosystem, go to WNBA games, go to NWSL games, just consume it the way that another human would, not a marketer.
I love that. Okay. I wrote those down. Thank you. And that's applicable for everyone and everything also, I believe. And so to the point of kind of trends, things like that, now the Latino community has been a powerful force in sports, right? All kinds of sports.
Yeah.
What do you see as the future of sports for Latinos as Ally continues being a platform for athletes?
Well, look, I think it's just sports is a platform that is exploding right now, in that it's not just a couple sports, right? Look at things that are rising in terms of popularity in this country that we never thought would. The cricket match a couple of weeks ago, where the U.S. actually won, and it was one of the most well-attended and watched cricket matches in the history. I was talking to Kathy Engelbert on Friday, who's the commissioner of the WNBA. She said the fastest growing audience for the WNBA is the Latino audience, which is incredible. I wouldn't have thought that, right? So to me, I think it's the fact that sports is growing so many different, whether there's softball, volleyball, there's this massive growth of sport in general and different kinds of sports. And so I think that presents all kinds of opportunities, whether it's job opportunity, whether it's strategic opportunities, whether it's participation opportunities. I think it's a very viable ecosystem that provides tons of opportunity for growth and learning and economic mobility, which is what we've been talking about the whole time.
Absolutely, absolutely. So a few more questions. Now, can you describe your favorite campaign that you've done with Ally?
Yeah, I would say that the favorite campaign that we've ever done with Ally is the one that we've got in the marketplace right now, and we call it the Words campaign. And we kind of stumbled across the fact that there's all these words that contain ALLY in them, iconically, magically, socially, like hundreds and hundreds of them. And it was kind of one of those, oh my gosh, how come it took us this long to figure this out moment? And then we married that with the insight that for everything that you do in life, you need money. But that's an icky thing to say. You don't want to walk around and say to people, you need money for this, you need money for that. But if you use the words as representation of the moments in life, then it placed us alongside every important moment in life for a customer, and they made the one-to-one connection. And so it's been awesome. It's visually beautiful. It's strategically really smart. It's allowed us to have our highest level of brand health KPIs in the history of our company, and the highest level of sentiment in the history of our company. So it's work I'm really, really proud of.
I love that. And so that's a bit about the maybe favorite campaign for Ally. Let me ask you this. In your career, what's been your favorite or most rewarding experience in your career?
I would say definitely the launch of the 50/50 pledge and the work that we've done in the women's sports ecosystem. It's an incredible pride point for me, because I think that we are literally changing the landscape for athletes. We're literally changing the landscape for fans. We're literally helping build out a sustainable ecosystem for women's sports that never existed before. Anything that you read, we get credit as being the architect of the movement. You mentioned that award that we got recently of Sponsor of the Year. It's super cool because you think about all the giant brands in the world that we're up against, and here's little old Ally coming in and winning Sports Sponsor of the Year. It's pretty awesome. It's very emotional for me, especially as a former athlete, and I just love it. That's
awesome. No, I love that. And I'll say, I mean, to me, as I started learning more in preparation for this session, I started thinking about it, and I wonder, do you realize, 20 years from now, when or hopefully it's shorter than that, but say 20 years from now, everything's at parity, all that sort of good stuff. You're one of the individuals that is making that happen.
Yeah.
And have you taken a minute to realize or be able to say, okay, like, to really absorb how that feels in the moment, knowing that you still got a lot of work to do?
Yeah, no, you know what? Thank you for saying that and recognizing that. Honestly, like my probably my most emotional moment in this journey was when we had gotten the championship game moved to prime time, and the game that year was in Washington D.C. and we went to the game, my team and myself, and I was down on the field for the start of the game, and the game was sold out. It's 8 p.m. All the camera crews from CBS were there, sold out game, beautiful atmosphere. And I looked around the stadium and I saw these parents with their little ones, their little girls especially. And I thought to myself, no little girl is ever going to have to think they're not worthy of prime time again. And I got really emotional. I started crying because my biggest regret in life, Damien, is, I was a pretty good soccer player. I probably could have made a run at a professional career or made a good run at playing for the national team. There was no national team when I played soccer. There was no professional soccer when I played. So my career just had to dead end. My sports career had to dead end. And that's not the case now. And so to see that we've been part of that is an incredible gift, and I'm humbled by it every single day.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And I will tell you, I agree. As a father of a daughter, one of the things that we said for high school was one activity in one sport, especially, and the sport piece around the team dynamic, the things you learn from being on a team, which is amazing. And our daughter chose track and field as her sport, and so us being able to be out there and cheering her on, and it was awesome. It was just an awesome experience, and to know that it's going to just continue to grow and grow. It won't be the exception anymore. It'll be the standard, and it'll be what's there. It's phenomenal. I wanted to make sure I throw a note in there. So just before, you saw Andrea's LinkedIn, so please follow her on LinkedIn over there. There's all kinds of messages that she puts out that I think are phenomenal. I've read some stuff that you've had out there, so thank you for sharing your wisdom all the time. We're getting a lot of comments coming through and questions coming through, so I'm trying to make sure I'm sifting through them. So folks are loving what you are saying. So again, thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to be able to hear from you in this moment. One of the questions that's come through is, how do you ensure that diverse audiences are included in your marketing sponsorships and campaigns?
Well, first of all, it starts with having a team that's diverse, and making sure that we have diverse perspectives around the table. And, we've got, I would say, a very diverse, multicultural, looking team. And so, and that encompasses everything from ethnicity to sexuality to gender, all of the things that are important to making sure that we reflect a diverse mass. And to me, that's one. Two is really leaning into cultural insights. I think the best brands today are the brands that are of culture. And, I keep using this phrase, diverse mass, but there's no denying that's really what the makeup of this country is right now. And that's got to be rooted in the right types of cultural insights. And so relying on research, quantitative, qualitative experts to really understand that deeply. And then you got to check yourself in all candor. You got to sit back. Sometimes you watch creative, whether it's TV or social or whatever, and you watch it as a human, and you don't watch it as a marketer, and you say, okay, does it hit me? Does it get an emotional reaction from me in some way? And then the second time you watch it and say, do I have the right diverse representation? Am I representing the right points of view? There's like a mental checklist you got to go through in your mind. And then I think lastly is the authenticity comes from having people that are experts. You know, we launched this incredible campaign last year called Biculturally, and it was the work that we did against the Latino audience. And I was so proud of Jennifer Villamez, who is our head of all of our Latino marketing, because she came up with this brilliant insight that Latinos feel that they're 200%ers, 100% American and 100% Latino. And we built a whole spot around it. And that was a brilliant insight that wouldn't have come up if Jennifer wasn't so rooted in the culture. And so you've got to trust and listen to your experts, and not think that because you have a C in front of your title that you're the expert.
I love that. I love that. I got to tell you about this. So there's a big shout out for MSU. Go Green.
Yeah, go white.
Some of the other comments, I just want to read a couple of them to you. One of them is, Andrea, thank you for helping pave the way for females in sports. Such an inspiring conversation. Thank you. That is just comment after comment. So you are inspiring a lot of people today. So I just wanted to thank you for that again. Another question that is coming through. So how are you measuring success in the 50-50 pledge?
Yeah, we're measuring a number of ways. First of all, we're holding ourselves accountable. So we are publicly tracking ourselves against that 50-50 pledge, and any stage that we're on, whether it's myself or members of my sports marketing team, are talking about where we're at in the 50-50 pledge and what hurdles we're facing or what some of the difficulties that we're having are achieve. So that's kind of holding ourselves accountable. But more importantly, from a KPI standpoint, we're looking at, has our number of female customers grown? Have the percentage of females that are coming to our storefront growing? Is our likability growing? Is our sentiment growing? One of the things that I'm the most proud of, Damien, is that when this past year, our brand value grew by 32%. It was the largest jump we've had in 5 years. The financial services category dropped 3 points because, keep in mind, last year we had 3 major banking failures. So there's a lot of lost confidence in the financial services category, and we grew. We also were one of only 4 banking brands last year that grew in terms of trust, and we grew faster than any other brand. And so all of those are empirical data points that demonstrate that this pledge is resonating and driving our business forward.
That is fascinating. That's amazing. What's considered a good jump there? What would have been nice to have?
You know, usually we jump on an average of 5 to 10%.
Okay. Yeah, and that's what.
Yeah, and then there have actually been years, 2 years ago, we dropped a couple percentage points. And brand value, to me, it's real, right? It's tangible. Like when you're sitting across the desk from your CFO and he's doing the, why should I spend all this money in marketing conversation that we all get from our CFOs. You know, that's something you can point to because that is a true monetization of our brand. That's real. That is indicative of how your brand could be monetized in the world. And so, you know, I try and look for those kinds of things. And that was an incredible jump, especially as I mentioned, in a year where you had banking and systemic failures.
Right. Absolutely. I wanted to get so that folks that maybe aren't aware, like relatively speaking, how good is that? That is insanely good. That is off the charts phenomenal. So thank you for sharing that with us. So a question for you. So as you start thinking about where things are going, what's the biggest challenge that you see in marketing as you start looking going forward? What do you see as the next big challenge that's going to be out there from a marketing standpoint?
I think there are a couple. One, I think the industry's got to reconcile AI, the value of AI, and potentially the impact of it on both job creation and job loss. And we're early days. I think a lot of marketers are trying to figure it out, myself included. But I think the reconciliation of what that tool is going to do to the industry is critical. I think secondly is the complexity of the media environment. I talk about it all the time. think about streaming platforms alone, there are thousands of them. How do you get your brand message in front of people anymore? How do you get it in front of people in a way that resonates? And then how do you do it in a way that's brand safe? How do I make sure my content isn't showing up next to content I don't want it to? How do I make sure that I don't inadvertently do something that sets off a set of consequences that are going to damage my brand? A lot of marketers not sleeping at night, especially going into an election year. It's scary out there. And I think those are two of the biggest challenges that we face. And then lastly, just human capital. This is an industry, I talked about the diverse mass, how important the diverse mass is. We need the right kind of representation around the table. I still don't have enough of it. I want more of it. I'm not happy with where I'm at in terms of how I've grown my team and the diversity around my team. And human capital is so critical in that. And so many of us, really need to be intentional about making sure that we have a diverse slate of candidates when we're talking to candidates, and that we are hiring, mentoring, and keeping great diverse talent.
Love that. Thank you. And we just had a comment. Oh, if the producers can, thank you very much. From Laura Blazing, phenomenal discussion with two inspiring leaders. Couldn't be more proud of the Ally team. # deeds, not words. I love that.
Thank
it is
you,
all about
Laura.
what you do, not just about what you say. Fantastic. So we have about 10, 12 more minutes. I'm going to talk about something a little bit more fun, maybe.
Sure.
Have you heard from any of the professional athletes and how they feel about the marketing that Ally is doing? I'm curious, what's the feedback from the people that you're putting on stage there?
Yeah, it's really fun. That's been one of the fun offshoots of this for me, Damien, is I have become personally such good friends with so many professional female athletes now. And it's incredible. Julie Foudy, Michelle Akers, Mia Hamm, Brandy Chastain, Allie Wagner, Tobin Heath, Kristen Press, like all these women that played for the U.S. women's national team that were heroes of mine. I was at an Angel City versus Bay FC game a couple of months ago in LA, and it was halftime, and we were in like this little private club area, and Mia Hamm came over to me and hugged me, and she said, "I just wanted to thank you." And she's like, obsessed with what Ally is doing, obsessed with what the spark that you have ignited. I had to come and find you and give you a hug. Those lists go on and on and on. Ashlyn Harris, then you go over to the WNBA side, same thing. But probably my pinch me moment was I was in my office one day and I get an email, and I just happened to be online, and I read the email, and the subject was "Thank you, Andrea. Thank you and your team at Ally for what you have done to fight for equity and change in the women's sports landscape. I myself have fought for equity for a long time, and so I watch and follow women very closely that do the same. Would love to get some coffee with you sometime and talk more about your important work. All the best, Billie Jean King."
Oh.
And I was like, am I being pranked? And I responded back immediately. I went to New York a couple of weeks later. I had coffee with Billie Jean and Alana, her partner. Billie gave me an autographed copy of her book. She wrote this really beautiful sentimental statement, and they asked me to be a part of the Women's Sports Foundation, which is the board that she founded with her first $5,000 that she won to protect Title IX and advance the equity in women's sports over 20 years ago. And I'm a proud new board member. So yeah, it's been incredible. And I think that's what I love about this ecosystem is that these athletes, they reach out and they thank you because not that many people are helping them right now. And so it's been pretty awesome.
Love that. And congratulations on that. That is amazing. It's hard to end on anything like I want to just stop right now, but There's a couple more questions coming through, and so I want to make sure, because you got people excited now. You got people excited.
Good.
We're going to answer some more questions. So now, did you think that supporting women's sports, just something that came naturally to you, would have such a significant impact in the world?
No, honestly, I thought that it was a great opportunity for us to get into an evergreen space where our brand could really stand out. I compete in a $50 billion a year spend category. 50 billion a year is what financial services are expressing into the marketplace. I never imagined in a million years what an ignition point this would be for our business. And the thing that I love is it is a pride point across the organization. I can't tell you how many notes I get from people, girl dads that thank me at Ally. We just got a new CEO. One of the things that he said was one of the biggest attractions to Ally for him was what we're doing in women's sports. And he's like, my wife talked about it all the time before I even joined Ally. And so it's just incredible. And we're just getting started, man. Getting started.
I love that. Can the producer throw the comment back up again? There was a couple of really great comments in there. One of them, right? So representation equals power with the fire emojis up. Absolutely, Jennifer.
My girl, Jennifer.
Yeah, spot on. Great conversation from Felipe. So glad to be part of the culture. So we have a lot of folks on that are really thrilled. I'd love to end with this conversation, with this question in the conversation. So we've discussed Ally's been growing in sports presence significantly over the past few years. What's next for Ally?
Well, I think, we're kind of approaching this idea of we're just scratching the surface in terms of being a brand that matters. I think we're finally on people's radars now, and it makes you realize how long it takes to get on the American consumer's radar, right? If we're a brand that's been around for almost 16 years, I think we're finally on the radar now. And so for us, I think it's like really leaning in and doing the work now, growing the start that we've made in women's sports, growing and continuing to resonate authentically with the diverse mass, investing more in the places where we've promised to invest against these emerging target segments, and really continuing to carve out a unique place in culture as a bank that people love. And for us, there's no single bullet. To me, it's a lot of different things, and we'll just continue to be brave, and we're going to continue to have a voice, and we're going to continue to do the right thing, to steal a phrase.
Awesome. I love that. Andrea, I just want to thank you again for your time. I know you are busy, but for making time for our community to be able to have this conversation. I will tell you personally what I experienced with your team, with Ally as a company. The culture is phenomenal. Every alpha member that has ever worked at Ally always speaks so highly of what is going on inside the company. It's great to always hear from the inside what you see from the outside. And so I thank you again. I thank your team for everything that you do in connecting with us. I will leave the last word to you if there's anything that you want to say, final words to our audience that is watching right now. But I will turn it over to you to say any last words, and then we will close it out.
Yeah, look, no, I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to you, and I want to say thank you to Alpha, and I want to say thank you to the members. It's an honor to be part of such an amazing organization that you mirror what we believe in, which is deeds, not words. I see real things that are happening every single day to help the Latino community, to create economic mobility. I see the people that have come through the organization that are just incredible members of Ally and teammates. And I see the things that you're doing in the world. And we just love to be a part of it. And just the enthusiasm and the energy. I wish I could do this with this crowd every single day, because you guys get me fired up. I think after this, I might go take a 10-mile run or something. So thank you.
Love that. And so I will, so I said the last one, I will say this because I want to make sure everybody knows, for those that are getting to our convention, Ally will be there, one of our platinum sponsors. So again, thank you for supporting us. We will be out at convention this year, and we're going to show your video one more time for anybody that missed it in the beginning. We're going to cut over to it now, and everybody have a great rest of the day.
Sports receive less than
watch the video.
Total sports coverage on TV, and poor coverage equals low fan base, which equals bad time slots, which equals poor ratings, which equals cheap media deals, which equals lack of revenue for the leagues, which equals minuscule pay for the players. It's a vicious cycle that needed to be broken. As a bank founded on being a financial ally, we understood that while media investment isn't sexy, it's the single most effective way to achieve financial equity and eliminate the massive pay gap. While other brands were just putting their logos everywhere, Ally took action and chose to invest in the advertising media that would actually break the cycle. Overnight, we reinvented the approach to sports media by becoming the first brand ever, not just the first bank, to commit equal media dollars to men's and women's sports with an initiative called the 50-50 Pledge.
For every dollar that we spend in media in men's sports, we're going to match that 1-for-1 in women's sports.
We founded Team Ally, a collective of female athletes and creators advising us on how to amplify change. And we pioneered deals with media partners like Disney, expanding coverage for female athletes across ESPN and SportsCenter. But our proudest achievement?
Women's sports belong in prime time.
Using the power of our media investment to move the NWSL championship game to prime time for the first time ever, resulting in a 71% increase in viewers and the most watched NWSL game of all time. We transformed sponsorship into an act of allyship. Since our initial pledge, we've exponentially increased our media spend by more than 400%. We've proved that our investment isn't just good for the world, it's good for business. And best of all, we've paved the way for other brands to also achieve equality in women's sports. We're already making history, but we're just getting started. Ally, do it right.